You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hey guys, welcome to Myopia Reruns. I didn't even do the full intro because why bother? It's lazy, it's summer, it's July.
It's Friday, Nick's got a beer.
Yeah, we're recording these in advance. I'm not going to take up your summer. You're listening to this on July 12th. So for those of you who are listening, thanks. This is an older episode. Daniel chose it. He's not on it. Oh, we should go around the table and say who's on this one.
Oh, I'm Matthew W. Quinn, who did not watch Roadhouse either, but hey, I'm always here.
Hello, this is Daniel, and pain, in fact, does hurt.
This movie is kind of a classic. This is, so for those of you who haven't heard it before, it came out a few years ago. This is, I think, our second season episode. I know you listened to it. It's Michael and Zack Krause with me. At one point, Zack goes to take a shit and leaves for about 15 minutes in the middle of the recording.
Oh, yeah, and then he comes back in the middle. It's like, hey, guys, where are we?
Yeah, what'd I miss? Well, we kept talking. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I picked it more because the movie is, I think, something that really works well. And for this show, I mean, it's so bad in retrospect, but it's so charming.
Yeah, and it's a perfect summer movie. Like, like this is the time of year to watch it because it's balls out. There's nudity for no reason. There's violence. It's funny. Mm-hmm. It has incredible shootouts that don't belong in the movie.
It's the same mentality that a canon movie has, where it's let's just throw a bunch of cliched 80s shit to the wall and see what sticks.
And it all sticks. This is just a fantastic film. So, Daniel, what are you doing at this point in the summer? You're working.
Oh, I'm working year-round. You guys are in the education business. I am not.
By the time this comes out, I think I'll be on the beach. So screw all of you. One of the Outer Bankses. Of the Outer Banksies.
On the beach, but you want to be on the beach?
Hopefully. That's the goal. It's not just to be cast away somewhere.
Well, if I recall correctly, you said this was coming out July 12th.
That's
so
correct.
Tomorrow is the first ever Atlanta Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going there. I'm going to be selling books.
I might pop in there for a day.
Go ahead. You can plug stuff, Matt.
So I'm selling copies of The Thing in the Woods, which I'm sure you've all heard of by now, and a short story collection that has a story in it I wrote called Nikor, which is like a Viking story. I'm splitting the table with a woman I know from an online writers group who writes more lighthearted and cheerful stuff. So we kind of complement each other, like stuff people who aren't into the grimdark slaughter fests I write can read her stuff, and people who are not into the cheerful, lighthearted young adult fantasy can read mine.
So speaking of Viking stories, what about Patrick Swayze in this movie with that battle axe that he's carrying?
And the belt that's above his waist for some reason.
That DVD cover of this movie is fabulous.
This movie is kind of a perfect summary classic, like I was saying. Visit Matt, listen here. Also, because you're here and you're listening, congratulations. We're going to be dropping stuff on the feed. Starting next season, obviously, we had one extra episode to round out the year on July 2nd. But on this month, let me pull this up before I say things wrong. On July 5th, we dropped Interview with a Vampire. This one just came out on July 12th. Every month from now on, we're going to drop in one extra episode. And speaking of the guy who disappeared into the bathroom, Zack and I are going to do our first Zaction film.
Oh man, that's why this is going to work so well, because this is like the perfect Zaction movie.
Yeah, and followed by a terrible movie, London Has Fallen. Which we thought would be fun, and then about halfway through we realized it was going to be awful, so we just decided to just...
Was that sequel to, what is it, DC Has Fallen?
Olympus Has Fallen.
Olympus Has Fallen. That was shit.
There's another one coming out this year, in fact, based on the same thing, and it's called, Eagle Has Fallen. It's about Air Force One being taken over by terrorists.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's an Air Force One ripoff.
Oh boy.
So listen, next month we have another one-off coming. And in fact, for the last 3 weeks of the year, or of this month rather, we're going to actually have 6 episodes. So between Interview with a Vampire, which you've already seen, Roadhouse, which you're about to listen to, and a Zack film, we still have 3 more episodes coming out in July.
We're like the late, great Lucifer. It ended, but then there were 2 extra episodes as they burned off the next week, which was a welcome treat.
And then starting in August, we're going to have a new season. So enjoy this kind of classic episode with one Krause trying way too hard to pay attention and one who just wanders off for 20 minutes.
And
You gotta go.
And remember, it's my way or the highway at the Roadhouse.
Enjoy your summer, guys. Thanks.
It's getting late in the evening, it's time now for dreaming. A candle is burning and table.
Ever been curious about the real or fictional worlds?
In the beginning, there were laser kings and giant robots.
Those who created.
I'm going to feed you to this tentacle monster now. No.
Or what inspires.
And I remember being in my room with my brother, and we immediately, like within 5 seconds, he decided he was a DC fan, and I decided I was a Marvel fan. And we were going through and sorting out all of the comics.
And you might enjoy Hubie Tigers, the only podcast show where we take life by the tail. Now available on Google Play, Stitcher, and iTunes, and of course your favorite podcasting app. This is Hubie Tigers.
Take my hand and hold on tight in midnight stream. We'll see the Joker, the juggler, the jailer, the refugees. We'll hear the rich man, the poor man, the beggar down on his knees.
Welcome to My Beat Your Childhood. This week, we watched 1989's Roadhouse, where we learned that Patrick Swayze is both God's gift to men and the ladies. I'm Nick Hoppin, host of Myopia to Defend Your Childhood and editor of DudeLetter.com. And on panel tonight, we have...
Hola, soy Miguel Kraus!
Jesus, now we're going. And...
Zachary Kraus, his older brother. And more quiet, actually.
I love how Michael was on Telemundo and Zach was on NPR. This week on Lake Wabagon, Zach is taking a roofie and a little nap. So before we get too far into this, Miguel, did this hold up as well as you'd hoped?
Si.
Muy bien. Bueno. Zeus, can you give me a plot synopsis?
Si.
You can do it in English.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's
or
excellent.
Hebrew.
No, I'll do English. So the movie starts in New York City, where he is a chiller, and a chiller...
Cooler. God damn it.
Sorry, a cooler. And a cooler is apparently like a manager of bouncers, and you get paid a lot of money doing this job. It starts out with him kicking a guy out of the bar, and an owner of another bar in Texas comes in. Missouri. And... Tillman, Missouri, and
Tillman's the guy's name.
Oh, Tillman, and
pedophile Tim Robbins comes in.
We'll get into all these details. Zach, doing a great job.
Takes that, and he basically gives him an offer he can't refuse, and he.
By leaving some horse in his bed.
and he goes down to Jasper and realizes it's an awesome opportunity with lots of violence, and discovers a mafia group in town and does battle with them and basically destroys the mafiosos there.
That's a good summary. We'll get to this. Before we get too far, though, I think we need to spend some time on Patrick Swayze and his magnificence. Michael, what are your thoughts?
He's basically God. I would have to say that this movie is It's essentially an American samurai film. Like if Kurosawa were to make it, this is what he would make if he were doing a bunch of coke in the 80s off of a stripper's ass in a bathroom, in a dirty, 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 dirty bathroom in New York City.
Now, would that blow be done at a wet G-string competition? Because that happens in this movie.
Oh, almost certainly. almost certainly. It can't be emphasized how many tits you see in this movie. You basically do everything but straight up hang dong. At one point, Swayze fires a guy mid-coitus while he's balls deep in the hot 80s blonde, doing her from behind in a storehouse. And he's like, but you can't fire me. I'm on my break. As if it's okay to like just fuck someone at work as long as you're on your break.
This is 1989. This town is where AIDS comes from, I think. It's just everyone's boning naked.
Quite possibly. Moral of the story is, don't fuck someone at work in the storeroom. You'll get fired by Swayze, which actually could be pretty cool. So maybe do fuck someone at work in the storeroom.
He rises from the dead to fire people for banging in storerooms?
Yeah.
And then dances.
Oh, God.
So
it'd be like Ghost again, but Patrick Swayze's the ghost now.
But there's some things we should get into here because Swayze is majestic. We're introduced to him in a camera pan that starts from his mullet and works down, which is amazing. Half the movie he's wearing pleated jeans, and in those jeans is tucked, well, a naked pair of man, because he's not wearing underwear this whole movie, which they emphasize several times.
No underwear in this movie, unless you specifically focus on the underwear.
Like,
we can get to that in a second with the doily panties.
But I was going to bring in the fact that his top for most of this movie is a gi that's tucked in, like a karate gi that he's tucked into jeans with a belt, because he's fancy like that in the 1980s.
Yeah. Yeah, I might also add that I'm almost certain that Mac's character from Always Sunny is somewhat based off Swayze's character if Swayze were completely incompetent at his role. And in fact, Mac, at least in one episode, mentions Swayze.
Yeah.
He refers to himself as basically exactly like Swayze from Roadhouse. He's the cooler.
Well, and what's more, it's such a great, simple decision, as you brought up before. This is Swayze's career as Cooler comes out of him not liking philosophy. He was an NYU student, right? He got a degree in philosophy.
Man's search for faith is his specialty.
And if I may, as someone who likes Broadway, I love the idea that the black guy with AIDS from Rent could have been his professor at NYU in philosophy and ends up just being a cooler. I love this. I love this world that exists in this set. Additionally, it's a world where there's no guns until the very end of the movie.
Yeah, this is the prequel to Philadelphia.
I don't know. I imagine that most of that movie, Tom Hanks wore underwear. So much of this movie is hanging dong.
Yeah.
Hung dong.
Hanged dong, I believe.
We're going to hang him from the neck until dead. The penis. Penis neck.
So, one question I have, though, is I mean, I've never been a bouncer. Have you guys? I'm guessing no, since none of us are even the slightest bit intimidating.
Well, to be fair, it didn't require intimidation from most of these bouncers. Some of them were just fat guys, but we can get to that later.
Yeah. So, one thing I'm curious is, from the people listening that were at some point bouncers, in the world of bouncing, are there famous bouncers? Because, like, Dalton first enters the bar in Missouri, the Double Deuce, and people are like, oh my God, that's Dalton. As if, like, he's a known entity, as if, like, Barack Obama just walked into the thing, or, like, it's fucking Hendrix, except for the guy's a bouncer, so, I mean, I don't know.
I like that the sequel to this is him running for president as a bouncer, or president of the bouncers.
Yeah.
President Cooler.
Yeah.
Do you think that Reagan had a department of cooling? He was the secretary of...
Yeah,
I hear you're good.
That's the CIA. That's why George Bush became president.
I love that. But no, you're right. Everyone's not only heard of him, but when he ends up in that bar, he kind of sneaks in. He's acting subtle, right? He's trying to just like blend in, like watch from the corner of the bar. And people are like, you know who that is? That's Dalton. Not the Dalton. Oh, the Dalton.
The Dalton. Yeah. It's incredible. Not to mention, you meet his mentor, whose name I can't recall right now, but is played by Sam Elliott, who both Nick and I are almost certain has never had to shave in his life. Or rather, has had to shave, he just never has. Or maybe his face is unshaveable, it's uncertain. But yeah, he's never appeared like babyface at any point in history. But either way, he's also famous. So like, I'd like to read this quote.
Wade,
when you first
right?
met him. Yeah, Wade Garrett's character's name. You first meet him, he walks into the bar. While Swayze's in the back getting his ass kicked by 3 guys, he's got both arms held by 2 dudes, just getting his ass kicked. Garrett walks in, just like, hey guys, what's going on? And then just like kicks some ass, like, because he's there, you know? So someone's like, who is that? And another guy's like, well, no, the blind guy. The blind guy is like, that's Wade Garrett. Another guy in the background is like, holy shit. So Garrett, who's bleeding like crazy right now, Sam Elliott, goes like, damn right. So he's just like totally aware of his fame. He just like loves kicking ass.
And you look at him and you expect, it's as though him without a mustache would be creepy.
Oh man, I would love to play poker with him.
No, it would be the only honest game of poker anyone has ever played. You'd be terrified.
Oh,
he,
yeah,
he could literally be looking through the deck for kings and queens or whatever, and you'd be like, let him do. It's majestic. And what's better is you have this one interesting scene. You know, I've been watching Daredevil on Netflix, and there's a scene where almost he's the stick character. You know, he's the mentor. And Swayze's a little nervous because he realizes he's up against this whole hillbilly mafia run by Ben Gazzara. And he kind of reaches out from a laundromat because apparently he doesn't have phones and he just has to do his laundry. He's like, you know, things are a little rough here, but... And he goes, I don't think it's anything you can't handle. And he's like, yes, you're right. Thank you. But he knows that he needs him in that one moment. It's a connection. It's the only connection we really see him make except for with the doctor. Mm-hmm. And guess what? He shows up. He knows from that 1 30-second phone call that Swayze needs him. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's truly incredible. I might also add that his girlfriend is the doctor, who's the incredibly hot blonde.
Who staples him together.
Who literally staples him together. Her blonde hair is different in every scene. Her spray tan is different in every scene.
So much so if you weren't paying attention you would think it was a different actress, because in the first scene when she's in the ER and she has her hair in a ponytail and these amazing 80s glasses that went down below her cheekbones,
it was the 80s version of like the classic shitty teen comedy,
yes,
where like the girl is ugly, she has a ponytail, and then all of a sudden she lets her ponytail down and everyone's like, whoa,
and it's a supermodel.
Whoa, do you know she's hot?
Well, and you know, it's one of these things where when she does that, she's her, like Michael was saying, she's very prim, she's very proper, she's put together, she's wearing like a kind of a lab coat. Fine. The next scene, she's wearing this kind of sundress and has a skin tone that's 3 tones deeper, and her hair is a different color, and you're just like, and it took me half the scene to realize it was the doctor until he called her Doc.
And her sundress was red and white gingham, i.e.
She looked like a
picnic blanket.
Yes.
So for the ladies listening, if you ever want to really turn your man on, just dress like a picnic table.
And
men love coitus and picnics. So
as a side note, if you check the IMDb, I don't think she has a character name. It just says Doc the whole time. That's why he calls her Doc.
She's played by Kelly something. Kelly Lynch?
Yeah, Kelly Lynch. And I mean, like, she gets plowed against a stone fireplace in one of the most uncomfortable and we have a lot of gratuitous scenes of Swayze looking majestic.
Do you want to count them?
Oh, what's your favorite? Mine is the one where he's doing the Tai Chi and everyone is seduced, even Ben Gazzara.
Yeah, he's oiled up doing Tai Chi. Ben Gazzara is noticing him. The farmer guy he like shacked with is noticing him.
So yeah, this farmer guy, Swayze shows up with his car and goes, "You're the guy with the place for rent?" And he's like, "Why, yes, I am." And there's a lovely...
First question is, you honest?
Yeah.
Yeah? You expect me to believe that? No.
You're a good boy.
And a minute or two goes by, I'll take it.
In film, we call that the meet cute. And then we go to the scene.
Can I interrupt you for a second and just ask, where the hell did my brother go?
He's taking a shit. Who knows?
Yeah, probably. Okay.
But from there, we end up with this. Don't worry, Beaker's going to be on mic instead. Look at this. But what we have instead is this weird scene where when Swayze is doing his Tai Chi, like Ben Gazzara is fanning himself like it's so hot today, and you have the farmer who literally takes his hair over his ear with his index finger, like he's like, oh man, that guy is just too hot to handle. Later we see him, we see his butt at least 3 times in this movie, which is also spectacular.
Lots of ass, lots of tits.
After the first scene where we see him, he's not even cooling yet, technically, I think. He's observing the bar that first night. And there's this waitress that is, I don't want to say taken by him, because I don't think she's ever interested in him. She's just impressed at what he's doing and brings him breakfast in bed. And
That's what I do to my bosses.
She doesn't intend to be breakfast in bed. She just brings him breakfast, and he's just still asleep. And she's like, Dalton! Dalton! He's like rolling over, and he stands up buck naked to put on jeans, because no one in this world wears underwear.
No one wears underwear.
And just zips up a pair of Levi's over his crotch. It's why his penis is pleated. We've seen it later. Everything is pleated. He's wearing mom jeans that go up to his armpits in this movie with a gi tucked into them. We mentioned that already.
Well, I feel like I want to bring in. Welcome back, Zach. I feel like I want to bring the initial protagonist, the reason that Dalton is brought to Missouri. The character named Tillman, who's the guy that owns the bar that Swayze's working at, the Double Deuce.
Pedophile Tim Robbins.
Yeah, pedophile Tim Robbins. This guy is supposedly one of the good guys. He is one of the creepiest sons of bitches in history. The first thing you see him doing is he's walking through the New York bar, observing all this cool 80s New York shit. He sees Dalton do what Dalton does, which is cool. God, that's fun to say. So then he approaches Dalton while Dalton is in his wood-paneled private bathroom with his silver suture set, sewing up a knife wound he received. I'd just like you to take a minute to just digest that, because it's fucking ridiculous.
And there's
he has a wood-paneled bathroom.
Well, not only that, he did such a good job that the doctor later commented that the
Good
person
stitches.
that did that must have been a professional.
He goes,
Yeah.
thanks.
Well, I mean, he's Swayze. Swayze doesn't half-ass anything. So anyways, Tillman's, maybe one of his first sentences when he's describing the bar he's running, the Double Deuce, to Swayze is, it's the type of place where you sweep the eyeballs off the floor.
Which means question mark.
I feel obligated to use that in normal conversation from now on. When you first go to Missouri and you see his bar, he's walking around, there's graffiti all over the walls, and he sees someone's tagged the wall with, for a great fuck, call some number. So he takes a Sharpie and changes fuck to Buick. So for a great Buick, call whatever. So that's one thing of Tillman. It keeps going. It keeps going. So at the end of that night, he turns to Dalton and he's like, hey man, it was a good night. Nobody died. And then on top of that, this guy has teeth that are like chiclets. They're like perfect squares, perfectly white. And like the whole time, you're almost certain the dude's about to rape Swayze.
And 2 thoughts here. First of all, in the 90s, there was an SNL commercial for the bangable Buick. And I'm pretty sure...
Yeah, he runs up to the guy's car is parked in front of his house, and he starts fucking the back of the bumper.
And as I recall, if it wasn't the owner, the car would lock down on his dick. Am I making that up?
I think you're combining the security feature from not Lethal Weapon. What was that one?
Oh, Naked Gun.
Naked Gun. Yeah.
You're right. Oh my god. But yeah, there was another thought, but it's long gone. This movie, on one hand, is the most perfect and the least perfect movie ever made. It's spectacular.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm defending it.
No,
I think it's just as good as when I watched it when I was back in the day, when I was a kid.
So question for you then. Who had more beautiful hair, Patrick Swayze or Sam Elliott? I mean, here is the file photo.
Oh my god. I have to admit, during this entire movie, I had at least half chub. I mean, it just... in preparation for this, I read the Wikipedia intro, or rather the plot summary, and as one does when you're reading a plot summary, it's really hard to sort of understand how sort of some of these over the top plot elements are executed upon. So it sounds utterly ridiculous, which it is.
It is.
But to answer your question, who has the better hair? I mean, it's definitely not the chick.
No.
I mean, she's got great '80s hair. I can't even understand where the volume comes from.
If you put rubber bands in Sam Elliott's hair, he'd look like a Raggedy Ann doll.
I like Sam Elliott's hair a little bit.
I don't know. I just like how we're introduced to Patrick Swayze from the mullet, then pans around him. Like it's so majestic the whole way. I don't know. There's just so much broing out in this movie in weird ways, and then at the same time, you could convince me it was like a half. Like Jackie Chan, Legend of the Drunken Master, or Bruce Lee film, because like when he's doing his training montage before the big final fight, it's just him strengthening when the old like Zen master comes in and is like, "Don't get in over your head."
It reminded me exactly of the montage at the end of Rocky IV before he fights the Russian, just without snow
and the Russians.
Dolph Lundgren, who I might add, had a master's degree from MIT and has a Fulbright scholarship.
Yeah, and he was married to the woman who played Mayday from The View to a Kill in the Bond movies.
Oh, shit.
The tall black woman.
No shit.
And my favorite story about that's just way off topic, but apparently Roger Moore would goose the women when they were having the simulated sex scenes where he would just like pinch them. And so when he has a sex scene with Mayday, Dolph slipped her this giant black dildo to poke him with. Yeah, that had nothing to do with anything, but I wanted to make sure that was recorded for posterity.
Well, I feel obligated to bring this up. This is one of the better factoids I learned about this film.
Yeah.
So I'll get to the factoids in a second. So the precursor to this is Dalton's Rules. So when Dalton first moves to Missouri, he introduces his set of rules to the bouncers below him. This is where you first hear the word cooler, which again is unbelievably fun to say.
It's a great idea too.
So here are his rules for the bouncers working under him. 1. Never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected. I think that's a pretty good one. Number 2, take it outside unless you absolutely have to. So basically no fights in the bar unless you absolutely have to. Fair enough. Number 3, be nice. And this is where it gets great. If the guy's an asshole to you, be nice. If he calls you a cocksucker, be nice.
But Michael, what line of work could use such a rule?
Cooling. Thank you for the setup, Nick. So, the factoid I found out is that this specific scene, this 2-minute scene, was used for a course for the NYPD. The people that are known for stop and frisk used fucking Roadhouse as a roadmap of how to, like, just police. Be nice. And this was shown to 22,000 police academy students, and these weren't initial students. These were people that were sort of like taking like continuing education units or whatever the cop equivalent is. So Dalton was used to inform how the NYPD responds, and I'm really, really hoping this is post Eric Garner.
Can you just God damn it. Can you just imagine being like, all right, we're going to have an in-service this weekend. All the cops better show up. We're going to schedule conferences, and you can go to like sessions and that kind of thing. But everyone has to take, session 1A at various times of the day, right? All 22,000 of you fuckers got to see this. And it just starts out with a guy who's like, we're going to watch a little bit of a movie called Roadhouse. Woo! And then that's what they show.
It makes me want to be a cop.
Speaking of random shit along the same lines, remember when we're introduced to Sam Elliott? We see him, and the bar he's at is having a wet G-string competition. And there's a guy in military camo who's like, and he stands up. And Sam Elliott pulls him down and goes, now I appreciate you're going to save us from the communists. Right? And he goes, you're just not going to do it in this bar.
Yeah.
He sits him down. And the woman who's up there wearing a cowboy hat, topless, wearing a G-string, winks at him and he goes, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah, so in the movie you see those panties. Would you like to mention the other pair of underwear that's seen?
Oh God, the lacy granny panties, basically.
So this woman is wearing a doily. She
basically a doily.
Ben Gazzara, who's the mafia leader, who we've not talked enough about, so he's the next person we're going to.
And that's an interesting part of the movie because it's basically 2 separate movies.
Yes, it is 2 separate movies.
It's basically the prequel and the sequel in the same movie.
The first 2/3 of this movie, Patrick Swayze is called on because he's the best of the best. This is another movie that's coming up. The Swayze. El Swayze is called on because after winning the dance competition in the prequel, he is now cooling down bars. Cooling. Which is ironic because he is so cool, he needs to drink only hot coffee to keep going.
Black. He drinks it black.
And he wants it leaded because it's going to be a long night.
Hell yeah.
God damn it. But what I was going to say was, I have no idea. I'm gone.
All I know is I want a poster that says everything I know in life I learned from Roadhouse.
And it would just be a picture of a silhouetted man wearing pleated pants up to his armpits.
Because like you just can't. I can't remember everything I've learned from this film, like how to fight, how to cool,
how to pick up ladies.
Yeah, how to tai chi, how to seduce,
So
how to tear out someone's throat, which I think we should get to in a little bit because that's a finisher.
So as we get through this movie, the first 2/3 are really him like, this is a rowdy bar in a rowdy town. I'm going to cool this down. Fine. Then all of a sudden we're introduced to the criminal element, which is essentially this mafia. We're hinted at it slightly. After the first day when he goes in and like fires people and tries to clean up the bar, people slash his tires and they break his windshield, so he goes next door to the auto shop.
Well, I still jerk off manually.
Damn it, Jackie Treehorn.
Oh God!
No, it's
the bad guy's played by Ben Gazzara, who you may know from Jackie Treehorn, who was actually a pretty serious actor pre-80s.
I mean, he has something like 140 film credits. The guy's in everything. He's in one of my favorite Hitchcocks, Anatomy of a Murder.
That wasn't Hitchcock. That was Otto Preminger.
Oh, sorry.
That was
Yes,
an awesome
you're right.
film.
You're right. But it's amazing, and he's great in it.
Yes, he is.
Anatomy of a Murder is where he got nominated for an Academy Award for that, I think.
I think so. That also had Jimmy Stewart in it, in one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a movie, where he's sitting next to Duke Ellington in a bar at a piano, where Duke Ellington is actually playing it live.
That's amazing.
Which is such a cool scene, and I have no doubt that like 85% of the people that have watched that scene were like, oh, it's just Jimmy Stewart sitting next to a black guy playing piano. It's actually Duke Ellington.
Well, and I mean, you bring up music here. This is an actually interesting segue. This movie has some of, what do you want to call it, diesel rock? Because it's like...
It's got like Roadhouse rock, but
Yeah.
it's awesome.
In fact, we're introduced to the Roadhouse, I guess the titular Roadhouse, Double Deuce, when they're playing Roadhouse Blues by the Doors.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And the guy playing the song is like an actual musician and
Yeah,
a good
he's-
one. I can't think of his name right now, but he's quite good.
And he's on the soundtrack as the musician who plays the music. Some of the syncing they do with him isn't great, but he is amazing. The music that is being played is incredible covers.
Yeah.
They play White Room by
Cream?
that's Cream.
Yeah, that's Cream.
Clapton's in everything. I mean, come on.
Clapton's in everything.
But the Traveling Wilburys.
Speaking of Clapton, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. The whole time I was watching this movie, other than the sort of diegetic sound, the music going on in the movie is classic 80s sort of like kind of that slow, like, you know, guitar twang every like 3 seconds. And it made me really think of Lethal Weapon, which, if I recall correctly, that music was Clapton.
And what's better is it's produced by the same guy, Steve Perry. That's what I was flipping out when I saw.
Wait, are we talking about Steve Perry from Journey?
Or Steve Perry from Aerosmith? No.
Oh, wait, who's the Journey guy? That's Steve Perry, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just spelled different. Yeah, no, but Steve Perry, the producer, produced pretty much all this shit. Like the Lethal Weapon movies, he produced the first Rocky movie. Like
that explains a lot about this film. How
Speed
it feels,
and Speed 2.
It explains a lot about this film because it almost feels like this is a precursor to the Lethal Weapon series, almost.
It's the episode 1 of every other 80s action movie, even though it came out afterwards.
What gave it away? The mullets? The one black guy?
Well, it wasn't just that; it was also the lines, the way they did the lines and the action sequences, like the entire. Everything.
Well, let's back up. Let's talk about the filmmaking process for a sec, because you have a script that tells a story. You have a director with a vision, and then you have a producer saying, "We need more tits in this movie. Let's add more tits to this movie." What about a G-string competition?
Yeah,
it happened.
And I want to emphasize this. When we were watching this, we were watching it with some lady folk. We could tell they were women. We tested. But the point is, they were talking about how many like gratuitous scenes there were. And the gratuitous scenes are things like they weren't women just being naked. The gratuitous scenes are things like Swayze posing for 6.5 minutes. Because the first Tai Chi scene, we timed it. it's a little over 2 minutes of him posing and people being like flustered by watching him pose.
Yeah, even the farmer is turned on.
Being flustered. I didn't see any women being flustered in the Tai Chi scene.
The women next to us were flustered.
Oh yeah, they were. That was true.
I was told I'm not good enough to be Swayze.
You're not. I'm not either.
No,
it's not personal.
I'm definitely not Swayze.
I'm going to start waxing. It'll take days, but damn it. But I mean, like, even things like when, like we mentioned earlier, there's a wet G-string competition scene, which is great. I mean, it's where diseases are born. But you see Sam Elliott on the phone. In the background, you just see people dancing, just topless dancing. The kind of thing where, like, nowadays, there's strip clubs in movies that are like PG-13 strip clubs. Here, this is just a bar where people are dancing, apparently.
Yeah. You can buy Coke anywhere. You can, like, I think I mentioned this already. You can fuck someone in the storeroom. You might get fired by Swayze, as I mentioned, which is potentially cool. Well, this is the world I kind of want to live in.
The doctor. We should talk about the doctor, but only because one of the people he fires is a waitress who's dealing Coke in the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Half the women in this movie are terrifyingly thin. Like, you roll over when you're asleep and crush them to death thin. It's terrifying. No, I'm not. The doctor is thin. When Swayze has sex with her up against the stone fireplace, where he just kind of, she unbuttons his pleated jeans, and of course the zipper up by his navel goes all the way down below his crotch. So that takes about a minute and a half to unzip.
Hell yeah.
Then she
zoomed in on also.
Very close. We know the brand of jeans. We know his inseam measurement from his toes.
We know the shape of his bush. You get very personal, except you still don't hang dong.
That sounds hyperbole, but we definitely seen Sam Elliott's bush. When he's like, let me show you a scar. And he stands up and unzips his pants in a diner.
God,
you do see his pubic lining.
Yeah, I thought he was going to show his penal meatus, but he didn't.
I thought so too, but that didn't happen.
He had a rager going.
I wonder how many takes they had to do just to get that right.
The director was just like, let's do this again, but slower. Oh, whoops, I forgot to record that. Let's try this again. Oh. I like the idea that there's an extended cut, but get it because it's extended like it's a penis joke.
Is there an extended cut?
I hope so.
Which brings me to another fact, is that they're actually making a remake of this. I'm not quite sure who's slated to play Swayze, but I'm pretty sure it's going to suck.
Okay, I'll tell you what. You cast it. Who should play Swayze's part?
Oh, shit. 2015. Who could replace Swayze?
I don't think anyone could, but if I had to play someone, I'd pick Tom Hardy.
He's too. He doesn't have the ability to play like an action star with levity. Like he's the guy you put in an action movie that you want people to take seriously. You can't put him in a movie that's like aware of its complete over the topness.
Well, and I think in my mind the other problem is nowadays to be an action star you have to be jacked to an impossible degree. And Swayze is tone. Like he is ripped, but it's not like It's not like Stallone in The Expendables where he's so injected with crap. Like he looks like he's bulging in impossible ways. Swayze's just a guy who's in shape. Tom Hardy is huge. It's like, I would say naturally, I'd want like a Joe Don Baker mixed with a The Rock type. You know, someone who's half drunk, but also someone who's just ripped. Problem is, in like Fast and the Furious 7, The Rock looked like he was one giant steroid. He looked like a Stretch Armstrong doll that had been inflated. Like,
so I'm gonna go off on a limb here, considering the comedic effect of this movie and the fact that you want someone to be slightly natural. I would give steroids to Will Arnett and hope he could do it.
Who would be the Sam Elliott part?
Shit,
Sam Elliott. I still believe he could kick the shit out of me.
Sam Elliott. That's a good point.
78 or whatever he is. Ben Gazzara has passed away, but we need an evil bastard. Why not Andrew Scott? He's evil in everything he does.
Who's the guy who does the diabetes commercial?
Wilford Brimley?
Wilford Brimley.
In the final fight, we need Wilford Brimley versus Sam Elliott. And then, like, he gets knifed or something, and then our new, like, Swayze comes out of nowhere. But still, my God.
For the musician, the blind musician, I'm going with Tobey Maguire. Mostly because I hate him. I'm not sure, but actually I like the musician in this. Whatever. I hate Tobey Maguire. I just want to say that.
The drummer looked like the guy from Dexy's Midnight Runners too. Well, and actually, you said Wilford Brimley. I was convinced that the car dealer guy was Wilford Brimley half the scenes, especially at the end with the shotgun. We should talk about your favorite scene in the movie, the one where you made everyone put their phone down and say, "You're watching this."
Yes. Are we able to play like quotes from YouTube through here? Because I feel like that might
I'll
be an
splice
appropriate
whatever
time.
quote you want.
Okay. So can I just like?
Yeah, say it and I'll cut you in.
Okay, so we're going to play a quote from YouTube right now, which is an incredible quote from Parks and Rec, where Andy is basically describing his favorite movies while one of his friends tries to rig the cable to watch like a political show. So meanwhile, he's basically just reenacting a scene from Roadhouse to these like wealthy donors who are just horrified. It like pans to Retta, who's just mouth agape. It's incredible.
But I mean, like, the reason why that scene we just heard works is the scene makes no sense. He's taken Doc up for some. Well, no, Doc has come because
probably multiple times.
I was just waiting for someone to say that.
Doc has come because she's asking him to leave town. Right? That's that scene.
I believe that's right.
And he's like, "You're telling me to leave town. I'm not going to do it. I'm here to finish a job."
Swayze's honorable, man. That's
He's
one
an
thing
honorable
about
man.
Swayze.
That's the one thing. He is he's a samurai without a master.
Yeah, he's a philosopher. I mean, his focus is man's search for faith.
And in the middle of this speech that, like, they're having this really, like, "you just don't understand" kind of speech, all of a sudden the house explodes. And it's the kindly old guy who lent him the room. And so he busts into the house. He boldly saves this guy who is wearing these amazing onesie. He's wearing a onesie with a butt flap, a red onesie with a butt flap.
I thought it was actually Santa Claus when I saw the scene the first time.
And you know, and Swayze like throws him on this hill. Like, "Are you all right? Like, he needs CPR, needs something." And he goes, "I'd be fine if you'd get off me." And all of a sudden he sees this motorcycle, and on the motorcycle is the bad guy. He's one of Ben Gazzara's toughs, and he's blown up this guy's house for completely unknown reasons. We have no idea. We literally have no idea why he's done.
Well, remember, at this point, Ben Gazzara is basically just trying to push Dalton out of town, so he's killing everyone else.
But why not light...
It's not totally clear why that's his
But why not light the barn on fire that he's in, for example?
Well, that makes too much sense.
That's what I was wondering, too.
Because then the movie's too damn short. You're not going to make money in Hollywood if you have a 45-minute long movie.
But it could have literally been the same scene, and you hear, like, "What's that? Oh, my God, the barn's on fire," and he jumps out. Because he jumps from the second story of this barn.
He jumps out the window. He jumps out the window to go save his neighbor.
Yeah, it was... that jump stunt was amazing. That's all I have to say.
He jumps out the window, down onto a bale of hay, then does, I think, a backflip onto the ground, all the while running.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And if there's a stunt guy in this, I'm shocked because that was one continuous cut. There was no cuts to that scene.
That's a good point. I would guess that Swayze did all his own moves.
I believe it.
I mean, he's Swayze. Rest in peace.
I mean, right. I don't know why I lost it then. Anyway, so he sees behind there's this one tough that has been harassing him. He's essentially the underboss if you're playing a video game, because he's the one who took on 5 guys with a pool stick the scene before when we saw Ben Gazzara's like beaten wife's boobies when she danced around singing in a cowboy hat. He dives off a hill spread eagle, kicks this guy off a motorcycle, and then they get into fisticuffs. It's amazing.
And what type of fisticuffs?
Oh.
Go into detail in these fisticuffs.
Oh, my God.
They're epic.
Swayze's getting the ever-loving crap beaten out of him. In the first time, we really see him getting beaten up by one guy.
But he's Swayze, so he's an ethical fighter. He tries to do it the least possible. He's cooling.
And in this one movie... we have the most cliched line, which is, "I thought you were supposed to be a challenge."
Yeah. Also prepare to die.
And prepare to die. And so Swayze ducks out of the way. His leg goes in the kind of the Y of this tree.
No, the other dude's.
You're right. What's that guy's name?
I don't know. Some cock ass.
Who knows?
Swayze then breaks his leg, and they proceed to have an entire fight scene after this, where it's like it's not even clear that the guy is hurt, even slightly.
He's fighting Wolverine, and his antimanium skeleton is healing as he fights. But Swayze now has the upper hand. And in fact, some of his blood has even disappeared between cuts. But don't worry about Swayze. He's hurt, but he's winning. The guy pulls a gun out of a holster on his ankle, and he pulls it on Swayze. And Swayze has already set this up.
I'm gonna kill you the old-fashioned way.
But what we learned that Swayze is not going to shoot a man in cold blood. But Sam Elliott reminds us,
kill a man in cold blood.
Yes, shoot a man. Kill a man in cold blood. But Elliot has reminded us, when someone pulls a gun on you, there's two options. You either die or you kill that motherfucker.
That's right.
Yeah, that was an awesome line, by the way.
And remind me again, how does he kill that motherfucker?
Well, there's so many ways you could have done it, but he chooses the simplest, of course, which is to tear his throat out.
Yes, which we learned earlier in the movie is the way he killed a man in Louisiana or somewhere like that in his previous life.
He killed a man in Reno just to watch him die.
Johnny Cash?
There was that 1 second where the entire podcasting audience was like, wait, I know this.
It's Johnny Cash. That's
Johnny Cash.
Life in Folsom Prison.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Love it. Yeah, so Swayze tears a man's throat out. It's fucking awesome.
But then Doc runs down and goes, "Oh, he's dead." Well, no crap. He flips him over and there's just no throat.
Yeah.
And then ultimately she blames Swayze for this, even though the guy pulled a gun on him, which is one of the weirdest character turns in the movie.
I didn't understand that part at all.
No, it's the 80s. Like, whatever.
But my favorite part about that scene is actually he throws the body in the lake and sends it across to the enemy.
Dalton!
Yelling,
"Fuck you!"
That part was
He's
fantastic.
like blinded with blood and sweat. It's fucking awesome. I love it.
My favorite part about
very
this,
Braveheart almost.
Oh, it's so much better than Braveheart.
Until Ben Gazzara ends up in the Double Deuce, we don't see a lot of him. We see him in like kind of passing glances or a passive aggressive comment. Or
He's just weaving on the road while he's driving, listening to like old crooners from the 50s.
Making me realize why I hate the 80s so much. And there's great things, but cars in the 80s, that's the worst Mustang Ford ever put out. I'm sorry, it's hideous. But
the DeLorean.
He was driving a, but that's not a Ford.
No, I get that, but that's my only retort to cars in the 80s. That's the only retort, I think.
Well, I mean, but even like
maybe Lamborghini didn't they come out in the 70s?
He has a Lambo earlier in that scene, and that's a great Lamborghini.
Doesn't he? Like
someone had a Lambo.
Did they?
I don't think there was a Lambo.
Wasn't there?
There wasn't a Lambo.
No, it was a
in there.
Ferrari. It was a Ferrari. No, in the New York scene, someone had one of these great classic 80s Ferraris in the very beginning of the movie.
Did they? I didn't even notice that.
A cold open Ferrari is the way you start a movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will argue.
Sounds good.
We had a point here, but it's gone.
Wait, what was the point? Wait,
did you see how excited he got when he said Previa?
Wait, shouldn't we skip to the next part where he goes on a rampage, maybe?
What we were talking about was Ben Gazzara's character.
Yeah.
And like, so at one point when he's nailing Doc, you just see Ben Gazzara on the front porch drinking a whiskey and smoking a cigar.
Yeah, as one does.
And when you were talking about when he killed the guy, Ben Gazzara's on the rocking chair on the front porch just watching things go down. He goes, "I killed him." I forget what's Gazzara's name. Brad
Wesley.
He's like, right. Wesley, fuck you! And he's like literally shaking with rage, and Gazzara's like, "Oh, him." Right? Like it's the most passive aggressive head
Like it's a
shake.
kindergarten teacher, like, "Oh, you've been bad."
He's gonna take such a nap. He's gonna be tuckered. I mean, God. Which of course ends to this rampage scene.
Yeah, well, I'd also like to mention that when Wesley is trying to get Dalton out of town, what else does he do? He blows up the auto parts store. Yeah. He takes he actually owns a Bigfoot. And I'm not talking about like a generic Bigfoot. I'm talking about the car used in the movie is actually Bigfoot 7. It's like a 15-foot tall fucking Ford truck. And it was like, "Oh, Ford dealer, you should have paid me. Now that you didn't pay me, fuck you." And he literally runs over 4 or 5 station wagons and goes through the guy's like warehouse of cars. It's totally fucking over the top.
But Michael, if you had seen this movie the first time, could you tell this movie was in the 80s? Were any of those station wagons, say, wood-paneled?
I'm pretty sure they were all Woodies. They were all Woodies with rear-facing seats. They were this modern-day Outback shit. They were like fucking Ford. What the hell is that model? What was that? Is it the same one that they used for like cop cars for a long time?
Yeah, it was the
Caprice Classic?
There was a Caprice, exactly.
Yeah, I think they were Woody Caprice Classics with rear-facing seats.
And it was one of those ones where you just see it and you're like, oh, if someone did a fender bender from behind, the kids in the back seat would die. Like, there's nothing about those cars that scream save.
And it'd be all from shock. It wouldn't be if, like, you know, it didn't have, like, what do they call it, crumple zones?
Yeah.
It would just be like, the car would be fine. The kids would just, like, their heads would fall off from all the shock applied to the frame.
Can you imagine being in the back seat of a car like that, like facing back when someone ran into the back of the car, just watching? As the driver sees terrified children.
Mommy, where's my foot? Jimmy. Sorry.
We're going to have to take you in the backyard and shoot you like that.
You remember the end of Old Yeller? You're about to experience it.
I don't feel like I have rabies. Well, you better. That's what we're going to tell the cops. So we have to get to this Rampage, which kind of wraps up this movie. And I say
remember, in this movie, there are no police ever until literally the last 30 seconds.
And they all act like they're cops. Oh, and by the way,
there was police when that place got off. Oh,
no,
they're
firemen.
Okay, you're right.
They're firemen, yeah.
And we're reminded that they're cops. We're told that Gazzara owns the police, which is fine. You know, it's a good set piece. It's a good setup. There's no evidence of this the entire time, other than the fact that people just end up dead. We see Wade. What sets off the Rampage is Wade has gotten the crap beaten out of him. He said unfortunately it was 3 guys and I can only take 2 or something like that. And he's beaten and bloody. He's like, look, you get a beer. You need to sober up.
Because Swayze is called by Wesley that morning. He says you have to save either your woman or your bro.
Yeah,
pick one.
And he's like, you know, he tells him to go screw himself. I don't think Swayze really swears in this movie, except for when after he yells "fuck you" to Wesley, to Wesley. He
philosophy, man's search for faith.
He's trying to keep it cool. He loses his cool twice in this movie.
Cooling.
That's what you call character development, Michael.
I know. Keep going. Wait. What happens to the rage? How does the rage start? What is the first scene you see in the rage? It's the Rampage. Sorry.
No, I think the tremor starts when he gets that phone call because he gets rageful. He gets angry.
No, I don't think that's when it actually starts. I think it actually starts when he finds his friend stabbed with a letter on there that says Tails.
No. I think.
Well, I would say what Nick's saying is the pre-rage montage.
Yeah, I'll agree with
Even
that,
though it's not a montage at all, I really just want to say montage. And what Zack's saying is what actually starts the rage or the Rampage.
Well, yeah. I think it matters that we get that phone call.
You can call the end of this movie "Tears of Enrampagement."
Does this scene remind you of Archer kind of a bit?
That's why I just said "Tears of Enrampagement."
Oh yeah.
He quotes Swayze a lot when he's rampaging. The cancer episode, all he does is quote Swayze.
Does he?
I didn't even notice that. Wow, that's awesome.
But I mean, it matters that he calls it because Ben Gazzara calls a shot. He literally goes heads, or he goes, well, if you're not going to make a decision, I'll flip a coin. And when we find Sam Elliott, he has a knife in him with a note. It's possibly the best murder note ever.
It was Tails.
It doesn't say leave town. It doesn't say you're next. It just says it was Tails in a knife. And this is the biggest knife I've ever seen.
With a knife through it. And what do you find out later about the knife mid-rampagement?
Okay, so my favorite part is I noticed this. I pointed it out right away, and I think this is what you're thinking of. The director had fun that day because the guy who apparently stabbed Sam Elliott had the knife in like a holster, a little sleeve on his pocket.
Yeah, it was perfect.
And he hadn't bothered to take it off, even though he had left the knife in Sam Elliott. So when the Rampage...
That would be like OJ still wearing the shoes with the bloody footprints.
Or the gloves.
Yeah.
But so in order to start the Rampage, he drives his Mercedes into the Ben Gazzara's compound.
With the knife in
And the knife is it's literally penetrating the gas pedal and holding it down against the floorboards.
Cooling.
He pulls the knife out and puts it back in his holster.
Yep, he's still wearing the holster.
But the best part is in the fight with that guy, the dude tries stabbing him with the knife, and the cooler flips his arm up, and the knife goes flying up in the air. Swayze catches it, and he's like, your tails, and stabs him with the knife. That was awesome.
And that is simultaneously like the best kind of Bond quip and the worst Bond quip in history, right up there with Christmas Came Early this year.
Oh
God, that was so bad.
Sorry, Christmas came twice this year.
Oh God, that's even worse.
The entire movie was a setup for that quote. I just want
Yes,
to say,
it was.
I hated that movie.
Well,
I
it's
hated
funny,
that movie
we've seen
too.
Denise Richards and other things, and she's fine. That's the worst movie that I've ever seen.
Fine attractive or fine acceptable?
Fine acceptable.
Wait a minute, was that her last movie ever? Because I don't remember ever seeing her in another movie after that.
You clearly don't watch enough.
Yeah, so either way, like, you know, the car is driven into the compound. You find out Dalton's not in the car. The car has the accelerator jammed down by, as Zach said, the same knife that killed Wade is stabbed into the accelerator. If you've ever touched an accelerator, you know you would have to like I don't know how the hell you would get a knife through it. It's basically steel and rubber, like an inch and a half thick. It's not going to happen. So
that's not how this works.
Either way, it drives over a hedge, goes in midair, and obviously, like, you know, barrel rolls, because that's what all cars do anyways, but especially in the 80s. You know, they're just like shooting it with a shotgun constantly. When it goes in the air, it gets shot and blows up.
Yeah, which
blows up midair.
Which is I don't even think that's physically possible. It might catch on fire, but it's not going to blow up.
Well, and when my favorite part of the whole trick is they clearly did it with a real car. The best part about 80s movies, it's all practical effects, because when the car lands, the axle breaks and the wheels are all fucked up, so it kind of like gets to a stop. They throw the door open, but Dalton isn't there. So then it becomes...
Can I just mention that I love that they needed to open the doors? Like, it has windows. Fucking look.
But they had to show it to the camera, and they really mug. This movie is all...
Like, they're sitting there like, there might be someone in here. They open the door like, oh, he's not here. It's like, dude, there's fucking windows. It's like any car in a parking lot. You can tell no one's in there. Maybe they're in the trunk, but no. That's so what's happening here.
And then all of a sudden it becomes taken. Like, he's just literally like busting down. He's being stealthy, and they're freaking out, and he's taking them down one by one, and it's amazing.
But the best takedown in that entire sequence is the bear.
Do it. What type of bear?
It was a gigantic black bear.
No, it was a polar bear. The exact opposite of black.
I thought it was black. Wait, it was a polar bear?
It was a polar bear. But that's
oh,
okay.
my God.
That's
Whatever,
okay,
it was a bear.
But what type of room? What else was in the room with this gigantic polar bear that somehow takes someone down?
Wait,
every dead thing ever.
That's true.
It was Wesley's trophy room filled
yeah.
with dead carcasses and heads. I feel like we talked about this movie a couple of years back, and we were talking specifically about that room. That's a room that every little kid would want.
Wait,
it's just a room filled with heads and shotguns and like batitted women.
Batitted women.
Batitted.
Wait a minute, wasn't there a line in there, like, from the bad guy that he was going to add him to his collection?
Yes. No, but not him. His ass. He was going to add his ass. He was going to add his ass to his wall of trophies.
Oh, the ass? Oh, my God, his ass keeps coming up in this movie.
He's got a great ass.
I mean, he does, but
He's got an ass that I aspire to.
You aspire to Swayze ass?
Yeah.
Dude, maybe that should be your
I think
goal.
We all should be aspirational to Swayze's ass. The world would be a better place.
Now, I do need to add here, 1989 is the first year The Simpsons came out. That polar bear that ends up in Mr. Burns' office is clearly inspired by this scene, right? Because at one point it even throws Burns out the window. Right? Because Burns essentially is Ben Gazzara from this movie.
Yeah, you're right, he is. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But I think the other part of that, like, rage scene is he gets to the final bad guy, and he's about to use his, like, throat-tearing death move, and he decides...
With a high-pitched noise that sits there for at least 45 seconds. That seems way too long.
But he decides against it, and then the guy is like, okay, well, if that's the case, I'll just kill you. And then all of a sudden, all the townsfolk, the 3 townsfolk, show up with shotguns and just keep shooting him. And he doesn't die until he takes 3 shotgun shots, which just was like, what the hell?
My favorite part about that is, he's not just Jason Voorhees, the greater good. He keeps holding his gun only at Swayze. Other people are literally shooting him with shotguns, and his gun hand is still up, pointed at Swayze.
Yeah, the whole character is fucking insane.
But my favorite is the outro to that scene. Like the denouement for a movie that's nearly 2 hours long. The denouement is 5 minutes, 4 minutes less.
What the fuck is the word you're saying?
Excuse me. What does it mean?
I don't speak Quebecois.
After the climax, the movie slows down. Right, it's till the end. So
you got a pillow talk afterwards.
Right, you got to cuddle. The denouement is like the movie cuddling with you until you're done with it and it goes to credits.
So, question: was the police questioning, like coming in and questioning?
Yeah, that's
people?
the denouement.
Was that the denouement?
Because
I'm
like,
not seeing that right at all.
Zach, I give you respect for trying to pronounce that.
This is the reason why I never tried French at all in school.
Yeah, last time I tried French, I asked my aunt-in-law to pass the.
Was it a penis?
The apple penises, I believe. In France, so I don't do French anymore.
Pomme de penne?
I quit.
Pomme de penne?
Pine de pomme.
Oh, good. Penis apples, in fact. That's good.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Last time you tried French, you got engaged. Sorry. We were going somewhere with this. Oh. So... Yeah, no, it's a term. I didn't make denouement up. But at the end of the day, he decides not to kill him. It's going to be one of these, I'm more powerful than you because I'm more compassionate. Cool. Then a bunch of people just show up with shotguns and blow him away as though they would have been helpful earlier but didn't think about it.
Mind you, almost no one at any scene in this movie, despite all the bullshit Ben Gazzara puts on them, actually has a gun until the very end.
And it's funny.
It's like you have two people come up to you. If you have a shotgun, you can fucking kill both of them.
Well, and it's so funny because, like, if this was a Scorsese mafia film, the mafia would be everywhere all the time. You'd have four people who are the target, like the main people in the movie, but there would always be these, like, enforcer types. In this movie, Gazzara has, like, 6 guys. Right? Like, and he owns a town of thousands of people. You'd think they would just beat the shit out of him.
But it didn't seem like a town of 1,000 people at any point. It seemed more like a town of maybe 400, 500, because if you look at the bar scenes, they always had the same people in there. Or at least that's what it felt like.
Are you saying they couldn't afford a lot of extras? Because they couldn't afford a lot of things in this movie.
Yeah, I don't
like
think
a script.
Yeah, but they got Swayze, so who gives a fuck about any of the rest of it?
All the money went into Swayze and his hair.
By the way, I just want to mention that if Swayze, bless his heart, were still alive, do you ever see the movie JCVD?
Yes.
Jean-Claude Van Damme basically just is a washed-up old actor who's broke. His like daughter won't talk to him. He walks into a bank. There's a bank robbery going down, and basically he gets held as basically the face of this bank robbery, even though he's being held against his will. I would fucking love to watch that sort of movie made, but about Swayze. And obviously the movie would just be called Swayze.
No, okay, so here's the... Okay, no. Here's my pitch. Here's my pitch for it. He's washed up, and so he has to be the host on something like Dancing with the Stars because he used to be a dancer, and then all of a sudden...
Nice.
Terrorists take the building, and so he has to roadhouse his way out of it.
Honestly?
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
So
I
should
would
we
actually
just cancel this podcast and let's take a road trip to New York to
So if he's gonna
just to the powers that be,
and we'll call it the Swayze biopic. Well, it's like the movie My Name is Bruce, which is the Bruce Campbell movie where
I love that movie.
Everyone thinks he's just this actor, but this one kid believes that he really can battle evil, and then evil happens and he freaks out, but then has to really save the day.
I believe the song from that movie went something like "Guan you, Guan me, Guan D." Yeah,
Guan D is his name.
I'm sort of embarrassed that I know that.
I watched it at your place in Boston back in the day.
I want to add one line before maybe we finish this. I think my favorite line from the police interview is from the guy who the polar bear dropped on him. He was like, "So did you see anything?" He's like, "No, sir. I was under a polar bear."
Polar bear fell on me.
Yeah, polar bear fell on me. Sorry.
I like how you turned him into Sling Blade. Polar bear fell on me. No, this movie, my God, the ending alone is
amazing. Oh, and
majestic.
it ends with them in the bar playing a riff, and everybody's happy that all the bad guys are gone.
The band's no longer playing behind chicken wire.
You know what we should have done? What we should the movie. That's something I think they screwed up.
Oh! And also, while the credits are rolling, Swayze and Hot Blonde Doctor are just skinny dipping in the pool.
Oh yeah, that was
between
cool
the farm and Ben Wesley's place.
I mean, yes, and I think that's the closest we see to him hanging dong, but because it's zoomed out and it zooms back in.
There's no dong long,
but he is naked.
Yeah,
completely naked.
And no one's wearing underwear. We mentioned that before. But I'm saying that's the only part of the movie I didn't like because I don't want him to settle down. He can even bring her with him, but he needs to be going to the next town. We should have seen him driving off into the distance as the band is playing in the bar.
Well, there was a sequel made to this movie.
Was there really?
There was. I've never
Ted's
seen
Montana Grill.
It has. It has. I believe no one from the original film.
Wait a minute. Is that because Swayze
like
died?
front office or back office? Like no, it was like I don't know, 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, something like that.
So a decade later.
Yeah,
was
at
it
least
a porn film?
Maybe. But anyway, I have to ask that we've been rambling along for this much time. I love this movie. I still love this movie. I defend it and I stand behind it. Did you guys like it?
I was going to say, no, we should do our final judgments. We'll go to Zach. We'll give your final thoughts, and I'll wrap it up.
So my final thoughts is I was expecting this movie to be something completely different. When I saw the movie titled Roadhouse, for some reason I was expecting there to be a lot of stakes and a movie entirely food related, and it wasn't anything like that. And
Patrick Swayze stars in Ratatouille.
and the movie that actually turned out to be I liked way better than the movie I had in my head. That's all I'm going to say about this.
Cool.
There aren't words for what you just said, so I'm going to just move to Michael. So what are your final thoughts, Michael?
I don't know what this has to do with beef, but I like it.
I mean, other than Swayze's a beefcake.
I love this movie. It's clearly over the top. It's not a particularly serious movie, but it's so delightfully indulgent and over the top. It is like the perfect example of awesome 80s action. I love it.
So I've been reading a lot of Sid Fields and like Save the Cat kind of script writing books because I'm not like some delusions of grandeur like I'm going to write a script, but because I do a movie podcast, I figure I should learn how movies are made and what to look for. This is like the Cliff's Notes of a script writing class. We should introduce some conflict. Well, there's conflict now in the second act. Like everything along the way is like character development, raising the stakes, ? Save the cat moment. Like it's everything so cliched the whole time that you could almost swap it out for any other plot. Instead of being a cooler, he could be an ice skating instructor, or he could be a disgraced lawyer that has to teach a bunch of kids how to play hockey. It's such a cliched plot, but everything else about this makes it one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
But it feels like it's also making fun of itself in the entire movie, which makes it amazing, actually.
I was going to say, like, nothing about it is taken seriously, but everything about it is taken so deadly serious that it matters. Yeah. You know? Like, it's as though the director said, Swayze will take care of this scene, but Swayze's like, this scene is my whole character. And so he's at 100% the entire movie. Then Sam Elliott shows up and he's like, you're not at 100% all the time. And he's like, my God, I could be 100% more often. And then it just goes even crazier. Meanwhile, Ben Gazzara is there with a bottle of whiskey just being like, should I be evil today? I think I'll be evil today after lunch. And then it just becomes evil. This movie, on one hand, is crazy. And then you see a woman who has cleavage. In fact, there's at least 3 women who introduced boobs first that you're just like, oh, the director had a handle on what he was doing. The feminist screenwriter nailed this.
This film is clearly post-feminism.
Yeah, no, women all have characteristics. They have names like Doc.
Mm-hmm. Cleavage.
Curve. Naked for no reason. Panties. Does anyone wear underwear? Probably not. We'd have no evidence to that fact. Except for
just overwhelmingly filled with sexuality.
So who's sexier in dance movies, him or Kevin Bacon? I mean, Footloose is pretty hot.
I mean, Kevin Bacon lives down the street from me, and I'm still saying Swayze.
Who's the best dancer, Swayze, Bacon, or Travolta?
Definitely not Bacon.
Well, with that, I think we're out of time. So I'll let you. I think you need to ponder that while I change. I've romanted through all of this. There was a word there, but it's gone. It's gone forever. I'll edit that out.
Good.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Your shirt is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Your Manfred is awesome.
Thank you.
Is that also getting edited?
No, that's part of the Zack soundboard I'm developing. Like right where you said that the Statue of Liberty at the end of Ghostbusters is why everyone should see that movie because your grandparents were immigrants and that was patriotic.
Yes, I've been trying to get my brother to watch that podcast for that very line. It hasn't happened yet, though.
There's good reason. Because you can't watch a podcast. It's just staring at an MP3
Oh, sorry.
file on
I
the
mean,
screen.
listen to the podcast.
Man, that's a good file. You've been working out. But with that, we are out of time. So tune in this week, next week, and every future week as we put another little piece of your past on trial. Thanks, guys. We're out. That was an hour.
Holy shit.
Myopia Defend Your Childhood is a member of the ESO Network and produced by Dude Letter Podcasting. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman. It is edited by Nick Hoffman and Candace Burns. The theme song is Caroline by the Serenaders, and their music is available on Amazon. Please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. And tune in next week when we put another little piece of your past on trial. Thanks.
Hey everyone, it's Chris and Mike from the Recasting Couch, the podcast where we take our favorite movies and discuss what they would be like with new actors in all the lead roles. Hey Mike, tell them where they can find us on social media.
You can find our website at therecastingcouch.com or on Twitter at recastingpod. And of course, you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Android, or anywhere else you find your favorite podcasts.
Yeah, if there's a service that's not posting our pod, you let us know and we will rectify that immediately.
Damn right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Can't get through to the cable company. Can you do something?
Like what?
Anything? Andy's just acting out scenes from his favorite movies.
So Swayze runs, boom, tackles the guy off the motorcycle. Dude's like, "You're dead, bro." Comes at him. Swayze ducks, scissor kick, shot. The guy has Swayze's head, and he says, "I used to guys like you in prison." By the looks of this guy, this is not consensual sex we're talking about. We see bad guy had a gun the whole time. He's like, "I'm gonna kill you the old-fashioned way." Swayze's like, "Not this time." That subtext, he doesn't say that. Bypasses the gun, hooks the arm, back to the secret move he used before to kill somebody. He feels so bad about it, but this time he has to do it because of self-defense. Takes the esophagus out of the neck area. You can't eat. You'll starve to death. And that is Roadhouse. What should I do next?
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek, classic, current, and beyond. Be part of the crew at ESONetwork.com.